to moral theories, I have long been intrigued with a moral theory called virtue ethics. Virtue ethics is it's merely the belief that the more you make wise ethical choices, the easier it becomes and the more natural it becomes for you, and you become a more virtuous person by making virtuous choices through your lives. Also, virtue ethics is a conviction that a person, simply by living a virtuous life, a good life, that they can live a life that affects other people and makes, in effect, the whole world a better place as ripples of that life go on and on and on, from person to person to person. So some people would say that if you're not protesting, if you're not fighting in some social justice movement, if you're not out there on the forefront doing something, even if sometimes it seems a little bit harsh and unkind, that if you're not in the fight, you really are letting evil grow. Well, if you're ignoring evil, that may be true, but virtue ethics has another way of fighting. Virtue ethics bridges a lot of gaps in our world. It is as old as Aristotle and Confucius, and as new and fresh as many philosophers right now in the 21st century. It also was prominent with Thomas Aquinas in the Middle Ages. It's also prominent in Eastern cultures and in Western cultures, among Christian cultures and those that are not Christian. It just sort of is a bridge through a lot of gaps. Virtue ethics certainly is not the only ethical theory that dovetails well with Christianity, nor is it without its problems. Every ethical theory has some shortcomings, and virtue ethics also has shortcomings, but if I had more than 10 minutes or whatever time I have for these midweek devotions, I'd kind of jump into some of the problems with virtue ethics, but I don't have time to flesh all of that out. I'm still intrigued by it, though. Not everyone agrees, but generally, clear back into antiquity, there were 4 cardinal virtues that have been debated, discussed in philosophical circles. A cardinal virtue is a virtue that's a foundational on which everything else can be built. And those 4 cardinal virtues are temperance and prudence and justice and fortitude. And that is, prudence is knowing what to say, when to say it, what to do, when to do it, and of course, fortitude is the courage to do it when the time is right to do it, and the perseverance to stick in there doing it. And justice fits right, well with our social justice movements of the day, and that we are not to leave things undone. And temperance, of course, is not to go to extremes and become addicted to this or into that. And all of those, when you work on them and you keep practicing courage, practicing wisdom, prudence, practicing justice, and being there when people need you, the right person, the right time. All those things, the more you practice them, the better you will be at them, and the more virtuous person you will be. I can almost hear a complaint in what I've said. I can almost hear someone that's a Christian say, yeah, but we know that we are tainted with sin, and we can't just practice ourselves into being virtuous people. We can't just practice until we're good. And the ancients agreed with you on that. That is, these are the cardinal virtues that we can all build on, but the ancients also said that there are 3 theological virtues. See, there are 7 virtues, 4 cardinal virtues, 3 theological virtues. And the theological virtues only come as a gift from God, and they come to help us draw closer to God. And when we become a godly person, God's presence, God's Spirit, perhaps if we're Christian, the way we would say it, living in us brings out the 3 theological virtues to add to the 4 cardinal virtues. And of course, you may be ahead of me now, especially if you think of the writings of Paul of 1 Corinthians 13. The three theological virtues that we can't practice ourselves into, that only comes from closeness with God, are faith, hope, and love. Those are things that come from the hand of God and are seen most often among godly people. Paul says at the end of 1 Corinthians 13, after a whole chapter on love, he said, now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Well, a person that spends their life with these four cardinal virtues, three theological virtues, a virtual ethicist might say that they are probably going to make a difference in the world that they're in. Maybe they're not standing up and screaming from a street corner and not getting loud, and they may be somebody that's often in the background, but they make a big difference in this world. And this world needs more virtuous people. I think about this time, I think it would be nice that instead of having 10 minutes on the internet, on a YouTube, on a Wednesday afternoon, it would be nice to have an hour or more in a small group study, kind of fleshing these ideas out, seeing the strengths and the weaknesses, what we agree with, what we don't agree with, and asking ourselves through it all, are we virtuous people? Are you a virtuous person? Or are you growing in virtue? We are halfway through another week. And in a few days, we have the privilege of coming before our Lord and together and lifting up praise and worship to our God. In the meantime, between now and then, may this thought be kind of going around in your mind. Am I a virtuous person? Well, may God bless you and build you in faith, hope, and of course the greatest, love.